I'll go first today. I'm Terry Diltz, President.
Cindy Kirkoffer, Vice President.
Mike DeNapoli, Secretary.
Roy Edwards, the newest member.
I've had the opportunity to meet a couple times with Roy, our new member, first during the interview process, and then again to talk to him about redevelopment matters and get him up to speed. During that conversation, I asked Roy why he would want to be on the redevelopment commission, and I'll let him explain why. And welcome.
Thank you. I guess the way I look at it, as far as the redevelopment commission, the mayor talked to me and asked me about being on it. I've been in Beech Grove ever since I was 7. I'm 43 now, and when I lived here, which a lot of you lived in Beech Grove most all your lives, it was a great place to live, still is. But as time went along, you could kind of see the inner city moving in on us. And I think in the last few years, it's coming around a lot better. And I think without the redevelopment continue, being as we are landlocked, that will continue to happen if we don't do redevelopment stuff. And that's why I really want to participate.
Great. Well, thanks, Roy, and welcome again.
Thank you.
With that, you all received copies of the minutes from our last meeting. If there are no additions or deletions, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
I'll move to approve last month's minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried. Old business, presentation and project updates. Digital City. Digital City, as everyone can tell, the bucket truck has been around the city the last couple weeks installing equipment. That will continue for the next couple weeks, and hopefully have everything up ready to run mid-May. With that, at our next meeting, Mr. Gilberti will be back. He's still with the Redevelopment Commission in a consulting role. He'll be here with the advertising company. We'll roll out pricing, all the packages. We'll roll out the advertising material, and I guess that's it. Just the advertising material and the pricing and such. With that, our target date for turn-on date is June the 1st. So without any unexpected delays, that should happen June 1st. So that is Mr. Gilberti's report. Greenway, Cindy?
I don't have much to update on the Greenway since last month's meeting. I've been trading phone calls with the landscape architect from Schneider just to confirm that he worked out the bridge crossings at Lick Creek behind the Park Meadow property. And then he was also working on one just location for Carrington subdivision. So I'm trusting that he got that worked out, but I haven't confirmed that with him by telephone. It's my understanding that they're beginning to work out some nuances with the federal government about planning and processing and scheduling. Apparently it's a little more difficult when you're dealing with the federal government than just the state. So it's another layer of government, I suppose, to work through. So hopefully I'll have an update on that next month and let you know when we have an approved plan by both governments and when we can move forward.
Great, thank you. Main Street, Mr. DeNapoli?
Not very much to report on that. I kind of gave you all that information from last meeting and explained that I would be in the interviewing or appointing process of bringing my staff on board and replacing people that were lost onto the committee. So I'm in that process right now of bringing on some additional members into the group and forming that committee. So hopefully, I would hope by maybe next several months, we would have a preliminary meeting with the Schneider Group and Crossroads.
Do you have your committee members, you know, well?
Do I have them all?
You do.
No, I'm still doing a few contacts. Did you, you mean as far as a list of them right now? Not currently, I don't have, I could name a few of them off, but that would be for another discussion, yeah, right.
Okay. As you all know, there was to be a meeting of the Redevelopment Commission a week from today, and we were going to adopt the Group B properties. That timeline has changed. We have not had the workshops with the council members yet. Mike, if you have any updates on the workshops yet, or?
No, I've been working through Sarah Kincaid, and it's just apparently been difficult to get people's schedules coordinated. We're trying to, we had breakfast with her a week ago tomorrow, and we opened Saturday mornings to the possibility because nothing else was working. So we're trying to figure out a way. We want to do them in a close proximity, get people so that they don't do it, forget, and then try to have them. But the real goal in this thing is to make sure that the council understands, what we're doing and why we're doing it, and how all the pieces fit together. And I think a new council deserves that, as opposed to simply getting handed whatever was done for the previous administration. I'm doing this not just with you, but with all of my clients.
Okay. Well, once those workshops have been defined, we will put a new timeline out on the website so that the public will know. Next item is new business, and there is none. So we'll go right to other business, which not much there either. We'll take comments from public at this time. Anyone?
I'd be happy to try to interview for that Main Street stuff if you still.
Are you a merchant?
No. Don't you have citizens in on that though?
Well, I'm not really going out to the citizens on this group particularly, as far as who I think is critical to have on the design. I might consider that. Yeah, let me talk to you after the meeting and see. But I'm really more focused on the people that's going to impact them, and it's going to be our merchants and probably people close in the proximity of the project. And then we'll move out. We'll move out from there, but this core group is the ones that we logistically want to get things straight before we get into construction.
There will be opportunities for public input down the road.
There's going to be input from you guys, yeah, as far as that goes. But this initial core group is very key, focal, strategic, merchants in our Main Street.
So you don't want any citizens involved in
I'm sorry? No, I didn't say that. I said this initial core group, then we'll go out. But what I'm talking about, the people that are dramatically affected are going to be our merchants along Main Street and those along the alleyways. That's where my focus is at this point, this core group. But we are going to open it up, like Mr. Dilk said, to the community and let you know what's going on. But that's not the intent, to keep you in the dark on that at all. So.
Can I add something to your mix there? We stopped doing Main Street projects in terms of the actual implementation 7 or 8 years ago, before 2000. So I guess it was even longer than that. But the consistent, I want to applaud you for what you're trying to do. The consistent problem with the Main Street things that they always ran into during implementation was the fact that everybody knew there were going to be street trees, or everybody knew there were going to be park benches, or there were going to be new lamps or whatever. But what broke down with the individual people that own the businesses along the way was it's better if the lamp is 6 feet this way than if the lamp is where if you simply put it every X number of feet, you end up with lamps in the wrong place, or you end up with trees that block my sign, or you end up with things that only the idiosyncratic knowledge of each individual people will be able to give you that input. So I think you're going about it in exactly the right way. You have to have the people that are, not that the folks that are in the community are not entitled to an opinion, But when a guy's got his bread on the line, the idea is to make it easier for him to earn a living, not to block his sign. There's a little place in Michigan that has a racetrack, and I don't remember what the name of it was. I want to say South something, that has the most beautiful downtown you ever saw. Last time I was in it was a long time ago, but it was absolutely picturesque. You could not see a sign in the entire downtown because the trees covered them all. I was looking for a place to have a hamburger before I went to my meeting, and and you had to literally walk in front of the building, look in the window, and see if it was a restaurant or a jewelry store or a ladies' lingerie or whatever. And so they agreed that it was beautiful. Nobody wanted to change it except the businessmen were complaining that there was. So I agree with what you're doing. Sorry for the delay.
No. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Will the business people that you will be working with be people that have been in business here for some time?
Well, I don't think that's the criteria, is how long if they have ownership in Main Street and they've got a viable business. And when I'm looking at some of the key anchors, strategic businesses like the meat market, Spalding Jewelry, there's a lot of, ones we want to make sure we hit the blocks and get those people involved. I don't think the length of time they own the business as much as the key anchors in Main Street. There's a few businesses that are going to, the meat market is one person I've talked to, Laura Lewis, the K9, Spalding Jewelry's on board with us. So, I'm trying to pick the areas that I think are very, very focal, very strategic in that Main Street project. So.
Hey, Mike, over on Main Street. So is Schneider and everybody, are they just kind of holding now till you get your new group together? Because didn't they have a preliminary 3D or something?
We do have one up on the website.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Right.
Yeah. So they're kind of waiting on this side to you gather your folks together and talk about it, or are we waiting on the grant in 09 or 10, whatever it is, or?
I think we're waiting on some a contract with Schneider to go ahead and proceed on that, and me also formulating my meeting or my group.
There was a public meeting, if you remember. We already had one public meeting on Main Street where we rolled out the video.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to know if Schneider's just kind of waiting for the next step on our side or what.
Yes, answer that is yes.
Cindy, can I ask you a question about Greenway?
Sure, Dave.
Is the large structure behind the house down in Park Meadow, is that a problem that runs along the creek? I think it's not Elmore Masterson used to live.
Yes.
Right next door. I don't know if you ever looked in the back. It's just giant building, more or less.
Yes. That's the homeowner that Schneider and I met with. Her last name starts with an O. They're fairly new to the community. They bought the Williams old house, I believe. That structure is the backside of their pool house, I believe, and it's not a problem, but it sits, as far as I can tell, I'm not a surveyor, but it's like right on their property line. I don't think it's in our property line,
right,
but it's right smack there. So the only thing the husband that lives there is worried about is the temptation for kids to decorate it with graffiti. So, but it's not a problem, and that's exactly the place where they're engineering a bridge to go across.
I see.
So it will come straight across there and then shoot off at a 90-degree angle and go north up. Well, I'm coming in from the back way. So if you were at Carson's Farms and you come across the street headed towards that structure, and then you do a 90-degree and head north and you go back up to Sarah Bolton Park. But they're on board, and as long as we can make the bridge work there, everything's okay. And then we'll just have to keep a real close watch on it and make sure that it doesn't get vandalized.
Can you say, or have you decided exactly with this first grant where you're going to start at? I mean, like with physical, all right, we're going to start at the top of the park and work our trail down that way. Have you got to that point?
Schneider may have. I
Okay.
just presumed, being naive, that we would start at Sarah Bolton Park, but I don't know that that's accurate. So,
Okay, well, that's
yeah.
what I wondered, because it's pretty much gonna follow the creek, right? So
Yes.
actually, you could maybe start on 9th and work backwards or something.
You could,
like
yeah,
that.
you could start at, well, where are we going to end it? We're going to end it at about 4th on the other side of South Grove Park, behind the South Grove Intermediate.
Right.
So I suppose we could start there, we could start at Carrington and go both ways, but I presume that we would start at the beginning at Sarah Bolton Park, so I may be way off on that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's gonna go on both sides of the creek then, Carson Farms and back and forth?
It pops back and forth, yes, Joe. It starts at Sarah Bolton, and it doesn't cross the creek until, let me think about this, Carson's Farm. So it's on the west side of the creek up to Carson's Farm, where the Park Meadow crossing will be. And then, no, I'm wrong. It stays on the east side of the creek up till Park Meadow. Then it heads over to Carson's Farm. Then it'll go along the west side up until middle of Carrington, and then it'll pop back out probably at about halfway down Charnwood, if you know that parkway there. And from that point, I believe it will stay on the, of course, I don't know which direction that is. Charnwood's so messed up there, but once you pop back over onto the Carrington side, not the Timbers side, it'll stay on that side, I believe, until you go underneath 9th, underneath the bridge, and back through the school property and back towards 4th, where it dead ends for now.
So you're gonna dig a tunnel under 9th and come?
No, it's already suited for that. Believe it or not, they've done the engineering study, and won't take much at all to do, because it's kind of hollow underneath there, and it's suitable to do it that way.
So you're just gonna go underneath the bridge overnight then, that's what you're kind of...
Underneath 9th, yeah.
So you don't have to dig anything out, you're just kind of...
There's probably
A
some...
little bit, but I mean, nothing major or
Yes,
anything.
yeah, I mean, they say that they can do it without much disturbance, so.
Will we be able to see those plans sometime? Can you get them up on the website for us?
Yes, sure. Particularly when they're approved by the state, and we may be able to put preliminary ones on there too. I'll check with Schneider. I'll be absolutely happy to put them up when they're approved by the state, because we know then that those are the official plans. But let me check and see if there's any.
Is there any truth that you're gonna have to redirect the creek in any sort of way, or is that just talk?
We had talked about it, but it became more of an expense to move the creek than to construct the bridges that we need. At first, it was a more cost-efficient method to move the creek, to relocate it. It didn't work out. So now we're back to bridges.
When are you expecting to start actual construction?
You know, as slow as this process is going with the governments, I'm not convinced that we'll start it this year yet. I think the best case scenario is late winter, but I'm thinking more likely early next year. Would you agree from what you've heard?
Yeah, we tried to push it, and there's not much you can do to push the government. So,
So
I just
how
don't-
high is that gonna be?
Our goal is 8 to 12 feet.
So you're gonna own that 8 to 12 feet, or you're gonna need extra? Kind of like what the city does when they build a street or whatever else, you always seem to take in a little bit more for right of way.
Well, I'm not certain about that. We don't have to acquire any property. So for the first phase, the city already owns all the property that we need. So I don't think we're going to have any problem putting an average of a 10-foot trail through any part of the first phase. The second or third phase, I can't remember which one, we need a little bit of property from some landowners, but not much.
So, do you know the approximate distance on that phase 1?
If I recall, right, it's about 1.9, just shy of 2.
About a 2-mile job.
Pretty good.
And it's just conducive, the way that we have planned phase 1 is, yes, it ends at 4th Street, but gosh, you can still go right up through that neighborhood and come back around to the park. So it's not technically a loop, but it'll be a nice little opportunity.
Go ahead.
Do you know, Terry, let me phrase it that way, what you guys ever decided about Amoco? Whether it was in A or B, it's going to be in some time
It
else?
was not in A or B,
Okay,
but we will put it in B.
okay, okay.
Oh, I got a question. Alro Steel, are they in Plan A? And if they are, what's their
Who?
part? Alro, yes, Alro Steel, are they in Plan A, or was that,
That was Plan A.
and what part do they play in that? Are you doing property on them, or inventory, or what?
Alro Steel, was that an attachment to the personal property tax? Was that the one? I don't remember off the top of my head.
You have to ask one of the attorneys to be sure on that. When we met with them, their biggest question was whether, when CSX developed, if they might be able to be considered for a rail spur, because they were thinking that they were growing fast enough to ship steel by rail. And we told them, if we can figure out a way to get you rail, and if it helps your business, that we'll be happy to help. Now, beyond that, I'm sorry, I don't recall the particulars of what the attorney set up.
I can check and find out what that was. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
So what is all Plan B taken in now then? Now it's revised, is it all that blue area on the map now that's out there on the?
I was going to bring that up under my comments. Mike, Mr. Griffin has raised a question, and I'd had several questions this week about what was our thought process in putting in some of the other properties, such as the meat processing building, Main Street Music.
What meats processing?
Well, just on Churchman, just northwest of Walgreens Drugs.
Near the Walgreens.
And in any event, what our thought process was in expanding out to properties adjacent to the hospital, which are obviously in need of redevelopment, the CVS, the Marsh. So I thought maybe you could help us explain.
Well, you're basically talking about the boundaries on the St. Francis addition to the 40 acres that they've got around
Yes.
St. Francis. What we were trying to do was to capture the commercial property that's around the St. Francis campus, because if it goes dark, most of those businesses appear to be, well, with the exception of Starbucks. I can't honestly say that I understand fully what Starbucks is, but the discussions that people had that talked to me said that the CVS got a significant part of its business from St. Francis, or as a result of St. Francis, and so we tried to include all of those. But none of those none of the area commercial properties seem to be thriving at this point, and so we put them in there in the event that they needed redevelopment assistance. Okay, I mean, that's the only reason. If you want them out, I don't have a problem with taking them out. This was, but the interest in this was to.
Well, it makes no sense to take it out because it has zero effect on the AV and has zero effect on any funds for the redevelopment commission. So it's.
You're more likely to lose AV than you are to gain
Right.
AV in any of these things, because if St. Francis goes dark, they will all apply for a reduction in their assessed value because of it.
Mike, at your last meeting, did we get a definition on going dark? Did we clarify that?
I don't know if you did or not, but going dark simply means that they terminate the hospital operation without having a replacement in place.
Just basically vacating.
Even if it's only vacated for a short period of time, I was telling Terry earlier today that the St. Mary's Hospital in Gary, where my two sisters were born, was, I'm not going to equate that but to this one, but the hospital was in a similar situation where they wanted a new facility and they wanted it in a suburban area, and it went dark, and 20 years later they can't tear it down because it's full of asbestos and it just sits there in the middle of the neighborhood. So that's what I'm worried about with this particular thing. I pray that, and I don't take that word lightly, that everything works out for that it just scares me. There are 450 families that live around there. And I don't know if you guys have been watching the TV, but here recently the National Association of Realtors have put on some ads that say that 60% of the average American's net worth is in the equity in their home. These folks are not in that end of the curve that we're 60%, where it's likely to be only 60%. It's likely to be a much higher number. And I think you heard me when we were in the other rooms. That really worries me. That, I mean, a $10,000 property value loss would be a substantial loss for a lot of these folks. And so I am concerned about them and the businesses, and if it goes dark. And have I answered that question about what the definition of going dark means?
I understand you used to say if it's vacated and just left there.
Right, even if it's only for a short period of time. But if they have a situation where they're going to leave and they have a deal and the deal's been consummated, and it's not necessarily that new people have moved in, but the deal's been consummated, then they've got, you know, when we move out, you can move in kind of a thing, that'll be okay. Even if it means that there's a 2 or 3 week, a month layover, you know, where they haven't completed the transition. But if it goes dark without a deal done, it takes a long time for these kind of deals to get up. And you know, in some cases, the existing occupant says, or the existing owner says, I don't want competition from whoever buys it. So they put limitations on what it can be used for, and hospitals aren't usable for a lot of other things except healthcare. And so you get into finite definitions and legal parsing of words, and well, I'm not going to call it this, I'm going to call it that. And it just worries me. I'm sorry, I've gone to the long-winded explanation that wasn't necessary. I apologize.
Is it true that they put out a bid package for $20 million on that property?
I have been told that they have put out a price of $20 million. And I'm not qualified to say whether that's a good price or not. But I have been told that that's what they did.
Any other questions?
I got 2 of them. What 3 neighborhoods would keep Beach Grove from being blighted? And is Sarah, from that map, it looks like all Sarah Bolton Park's in that TIF. Is that for the thing? Would that be true or false? Or?
It's Sarah Bolton Park is a trailhead, yes.
So all of it's included in?
Yeah, but there again, it has 0 effect.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
And that's
Was the question directed at me? I'm sorry, I wrote those down at one point. Park Meadow, it seems like, was one of the upper end. And I would contest your use of the word blight. We are not saying that there are only 3 neighborhoods that are not blighted, and nobody has ever said that. That you're the first one that's ever said. So, for the record, if it comes up, his name is Joe Griffin. What we said was that the city has like a 60% qualification under low and moderate income parameters for community development block grant money. You have to have 51% of the households that make less than 80% of the median wage for Marion County. And you have something somewhere between 55 and 59%. If you take Park Meadow and, for some reason I want to say Carrington.
Probably Carrington and Timber Grove.
Okay, I think those are the 3 out of that mix.
Southwoods, probably.
Okay, I never heard South. What'd you call it?
South Grove Woods, is it?
Okay, I never heard that one. But I heard
Grove.
Timber Grove, Carrington, and Park Meadow out of that mix.
South Grove.
The actual rate goes to like 85% low and moderate income. And what that means is, and the whole reason for bringing that up was that every other neighborhood except those 3 appear to be directly eligible for community development block grant funds as a match to TIF. And if I was just talking to somebody on the phone before I came over here, in Franklin, they have a neighborhood that they're putting street improvements in. They put up $107,000 and got $500,000 in grant money. So in the same way that we were doing the Park Grove, the Park Grove area, I'm sorry, there are so many neighborhoods and so many different of my clients that I'm afraid that I'm going to get them wrong. But that kind of money means we put up $100,000, we get $600,000 in total impact, and that was what that was all about. Not about blighted. It was about low and moderate income measurements from the U.S. Census.
Any other questions? Comments from commission members. Did we get yours, Cindy? Or
We did, thank you.
commission members? None? With that, so that was your first meeting, Roy? I don't want to put you on the spot. We'll review the claims as soon as they have an opportunity. Do you have any comments for it? We have a couple minutes.
No, not of any significance. We delivered the 2 hard copies of the of the review draft of the comprehensive redevelopment plan to the State Office of Community and Rural Affairs, who funded the comprehensive plan grant earlier this week. We, in the cover letter, we said that we would be happy to sit down and meet with them. There are 9 foundation documents that we have tied together. If you recall the last presentation in the other room, we talked about all of the documents that that were already done and how we had to piece the projects in to fit them. So there are 9 foundation documents that all coordinate, that were all done previously, including the comprehensive plan that was done by the Department of Metropolitan Development. The state is reviewing that. As soon as we are offering them something that they don't usually get, and that is the chance. They usually get it in approved form, and that means if they make comments, then the comments have to go back through the Plan Commission for changes in a whole string. We're giving them the chance to make the comment and have the comments immediately become part of the plan. So we are waiting their comments, but we're hoping that that closes the grant out. And we are awaiting 4 workshops, which are targeted at the new city council. And Roy, I will extend the personal offer to buy you lunch, and we'll chat about whatever questions you want in this process, but explain the projects and in detail. Joellen and I had a meeting, was it a week ago?
I think so.
Okay. And we were talking about, she was saying that some of this stuff's a little too complex, so we're going to try to simplify, create some simple summary tables that tell you what the projects are and what the steps are. Because, for example, the rock pile, we thought we had it, and we didn't have it, and we thought we had it, and it's going through bankruptcy court, and people sign documents, and then the bankruptcy court takes 3 months to decide whether they like that or not. So, and then you found out that, it was what a wonderfully naive statement that it's harder to get things through the federal government than the state. I appreciate, people don't expect it to happen that way, but it is. We'll close with 2 things. The refined metals people appear to be moving with the state in terms of getting an environmental release. The CSX people have said that they were moving with the state, but there doesn't appear to be any evidence. There's no documentable evidence of that at the state. So we continue to be hopeful. Mike's serious about this stuff.
Yes, he is.
You're saying Franklin is undergoing efforts to...
Yes,
Looks
very,
good.
very similar to yours. Franklin has, I want to say, 4 economic development areas. I was telling you the story of one of them isn't working as well as people might have hoped, because they basically sold the farm when they got the project, and then the client that owned the project, Music Land, went bankrupt and got bought out by Best Buy. But they are consolidating and integrating their economic development areas, and they are focused on, as you are focused on Emerson Avenue, they are focused on State Road 44 and connecting using State Road 44 to connect I-65 to US 31. US 31 is actually a little bit west of their downtown if you go straight south on that and start to look at that. They want to do downtown redevelopment projects that are very similar. They're similar in many ways to the Main Street project that you guys are undertaking. They currently have a grant. That was who I was talking about that put up $107,000 and got $500,000 in state money to do a portion of Jefferson Street. They have, I believe, 4 downtown corridors that they want to redo, and they are estimating $4 to $6 million per corridor to get it from one end of the downtown to the other. And I can never remember, but there's a weird place when you go in 44 to downtown Franklin where you actually have to turn a hard left, and they got a bunch of problems with trucks and stuff. So they're dealing with that. They want to do, their 20-year plan includes a southeast bypass that connects 44 around this, just after you get off the interstate, around the southeast side of town over to 31 where it comes past. And Seymour is doing something very similar. Seymour has 2 industrial development areas, one just west of the interstate immediately after you get off on the northeast side of town, and then they have the old, I can't remember the name of the field. There is an old airstrip that legend has it that was where they captured enemy aircraft during World War II, and took them apart to find out how they worked and that sort of stuff. So somewhere out on this airstrip is supposed to be buried a bunch of, I don't know, Japanese Zeros or German airplanes of one form or another, but that's Freeman Field, that's what it's called. And they've got a bunch of industries out there, and they want to improve truck routes between those 2 areas so that they're not going through the heart of downtown. Plus, if you've ever been in Seymour, it is a railroadman's dream because railroads take precedence over all of the thoroughfares, and there are places where you literally go up 2 feet to go over the railroad and then go down and then immediately have to turn right because the next street's one way, and they want to deal with those railroad crossings. So there's a lot of integrating going on. You guys are a little bit ahead of the curve on that. And there's an awful lot of work being done to connect downtowns to interstate access points. So there's a common trend throughout the state. Tomorrow I go to Huntington, and I think they have, if I haven't missed my statement, I think they have 6 new economic development areas that they're targeting. Huntington has a bypass around the north end of town where most of their new stuff is landed. So they're integrating too and trying to pull them all together. Greenfield, where we start a week from today, Thursday next week, has an existing area that we were talking about that's on I-70 at State Road 9, and it's almost full, and they want to go to the north side of I-70 and provide the infrastructure, but they won't do it unless it's annexed, and so the people that are owning the property want it annexed, and they're going through a lot of the projects. But in Greenfield, the 18-wheelers that are generated off of their economic development area are choking State Road 9, and the people that are driving cars behind these 18-wheelers are getting frustrated, so they're going to try to do secondary thoroughfares, traffic improvements, so that they can move vehicular traffic, regular car traffic, off of State Road 9 and let the trucks have more of the capacity. I keep trying to stretch this out and give you more because they keep going, but...
Well, we have a couple new guests.
Oh, I'm
See
sorry.
if they have any questions.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Templin? Or?
Well, I just stepped in, I was over, with Sarah, was over the police department at the awards now, and so that was pretty good, being able to go. But I just stepped in the middle, so I really don't know what's going on, other than what Beth is whispering in my ear. And your whispering doesn't catch me up too quick.
Well, just so you know, the Group B, that whole timeline has changed because we haven't had your workshops yet. So we'll repost that timeline as soon as your workshops happen.
Well, there's no question I have a lot of comments and concerns, but the good news is about the workshops.
Yeah.
That was something that was discussed from day one, and we haven't seen. It even discussed before we got a chance as a city council to, take a look at things.
Sure.
We hadn't even had a look at, So I'm real happy to hear about the workshop.
Yeah, well, that's why the timeline's been delayed. Get those workshops in before it comes before the council and then back here.
Well, that sounds good.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the bills.
I'll move that we approve this month's claims with the caveat that I have a question on Reedy and Peters' invoice for March time, and it looks like maybe that we included the balance due and the amount of the invoice, like perhaps our payment and this invoice missed in the mail. So I'd like that clarified, because I think we probably don't owe the entire balance due. Instead, we owe the invoice balance. So
Pending clarification of the Reedy.
that's my
Peters.
motion, yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There are no other questions. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Our next meeting?
Third Thursday of next month.